Okay, perfect. Well, my name is Ray Kaderli, and then there's two primary companies that are mine that are actively building with Hempcrete, and I'll tell you a little bit about the perspective on each, and then the motivation and the direction that I approach this will tell you a lot about why I'm approaching it. And then one is the Hemp Build Network, and then that is a network of professionals and suppliers that will make building with hemp possible. And we'll talk a little bit about how and why I got to that point and what that network looks like and how that applies to you if you want to do a project or if you want to do anything. But Triple P Fund is an investment fund that is doing simple, basic things like building affordable homes with sustainable materials to hold as rental properties. The end. Done well, it will be the boring investment you've ever made. And so it's that's my objective on that. Now, from an investor standpoint, when I was approaching, material selection and design and things of that nature, I was looking at things that would last a long time. I'm not a builder who's wanting to make a higher profit margin and then the sale is the exit to the property. I'm looking for the long-term hold of the property that what's not going to be in need of repair 10, 20, 30 years down the road, because I've also done a lot of fix and flip. My background as a real estate broker and investor, I did a lot of that. And, when you're stuck in mold because you're tearing out the wall and for the umpteenth time for something that's, 10, 20 years old, you start to learn things and you're like, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so those are some of the things that I wanted to prevent as I was seeking to build a structure that would last long term. Now, longevity is one motivator, and then efficiency is another motivator, because my investment approach is to be a landlord and to have a real estate holding portfolio. But my other focus is also to be an energy company. And here's how. The architecture will be designed specifically to accommodate solar. And then that way, if I want to monetize that, I can do it a couple of different ways. One of those is renting the house with utilities included. So any profit or efficiency that I can create, or any profit that is through efficiency, is money in my pocket every single month. And so that's something that if I create a highly efficient design, now I'm profitable as an energy company and as a landlord. And then that is another revenue stream for me with that property. And so that's what Triple P Fund does. The P are profit, people, and planet. We're out to cultivate opportunities that enable investors to invest in scenarios where they benefit the people in the surrounding area of that investment, make a profit first and foremost, and then also steward the natural resources of the planet. Because if something's not profitable, it's just a hobby, or it's something that we're doing to spending money to fix another problem. So with just a little bit of planning and creativity, then we can take care of all that. If you want to get my my cell number, it's right up there. That's my email as well. We do host a discussion every Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time, and that discussion is on the Clubhouse platform. And then if you want a text reminder of that, then go ahead and just text me your information and just put Clubhouse or what your interest is, and then I'll be happy to send that to you. But you can go ahead to our next slide. But what we do is we discuss everything about it. So if you're going to look at building with hemp, there's a couple of different viewpoints. Now, I've told you mine as an investor and wanting to be a landlord, and also being the supply chain side of that construction process. But plug yourself into one of these. You're either a consumer or an advocate. Many of you are here. We're talking about cannabis here and all the regulations and the policies that affect that. So there's a lot of people who are advocates for the whole plant that really enjoy this, because the fiber side will drive a lot of the industry. And then we can kind of coattail off of each other as consumers start to educate themselves. You might be an architect. We're talking about designs, how to make this into your plans, and or engineers that will stamp the plans that the architects design. The builder who's actually going to work with clients. So if you have clients that approach you as a builder, then you're going to need to be able to engage them intelligently, or you're going to miss out on that business. And so you might be a trade subcontractor. somebody who has framing business, an insulation business, any type of business that's in the trades. And this is one other thing that you can offer, so you have another revenue stream, because it's not that expensive to tool up to be able to do it, and to be able to do it efficiently. The barrier of entry as a tradesperson or a business person within the trades is very enticing. And so supply chain, and that's one of the things that I'm keenly focused on, is being able to supply the materials to those trades. And then lastly, all the ancillary, like whether you're the tools, whether you're press, or you're telling the story. I always like to stop and talk about telling the story, because one of the biggest tasks in the whole spectrum of the plant is that telling the story is the biggest task that we have over the next 1 to 3 years, especially in the construction side, because nobody knows about it. So as you blog, vlog, post, like, share, do all these things, if you know who tells the story well, or if you tell the story well, definitely connect with us, because it's one of the things that we're very active in doing, is telling that story. And if you're a part of any trade association or organization, I know we're here at Texas A&M, and y'all can say, whoop. And then, you know, you've got the hemp plants aren't in the closet anymore. And so now we're out doing this and creating a whole new industry. And I like using the metaphor is that it's like we just discovered trees. Now, what do we do with those? And so we're looking to build houses and go in the lumber business. And if you're a part of the municipal government, where you would be, you either are, or you have audience with those who would be either stamping or approving, or arguing with the stamping or approval of plans and permits, let us know, because we want to take a leadership role and engage those in a proactive way instead of a negative adversarial way. And so we want to be that resource for you as well. So that's what we do. That's how we interact. And then you are probably one of those up there on the screen, or you know somebody who is. So we can go on to our next slide, but just consider what you do. Now, I usually have a full day workshop. And so we're going to condense it into about an hour. And so I'm going to take the advice that the rooster gave the chicken when she said, I'm going to lay an egg in the road. And he said, well, do it quick and lay it on the line. And so I'm going to hit a couple of 3 points on here about what is hempcrete and why. And it is the woody part of the hemp plant that's after all. Now, the cannabinoid varieties usually grow in a more bushy scenario. You're harvesting flower and bud and all those things. The fiber side grow very tall. I've got some samples out to where you can see just the sheer height of them. You know, they'll grow, 10, 20 feet tall. And then you harvest the bast off of the outside for textile and things of that nature. And then the woody part of the inside is what the hurd is. And so because they grow so tall, so fast, they have a lot of air pockets in the woody part. Now, those air pockets are what make good insulation. Now, for it to be good insulation, it needs to have the lime added to it, to where you basically turn that piece of wood that would burn into a piece of stone. And then now it all goes together. So you can see how it looks when it's cast in place. And then you mix the woody part of the wood plant, and we've got some that's already mixed up downstairs. And so you'll be able to get your hands on it and feel what it feels like and go, oh, okay, I get it. But it's going to feel a lot like you're making oatmeal cookies and you doubled the oatmeal. And then if you just imagine that, forming it up in that wet scenario and then letting it harden, that's what creates the wall. And then all those air pockets are the wood basically goes back and calcifies and almost petrifies back in place. And then that's what it does. But there's 3 things that you really need to know is that it's healthy, the built space inside, because it cleans the air as it exchanges in and out, because the walls are vapor open. And so the lime and its alkalinity will prevent mold from growing. It prevents pests from really liking to nest in it, because if they're going to claw and chew on it, the alkalinity of it, it hurts them. And so they're like, I'm going to go someplace else. Now, it's not to say that they wouldn't ever go into it, but it is close to pest proof as you can get. It's as close to mold proof as you can get. It's as close to fire proof as far as the ratings. Again, This is like setting a stone on fire. The lime was a limestone, and it was put in a kiln, slaked, and turned back into a powder. And then now we're mixing it back with water along with this organic composite in with it. And then that's when it turns back into a stone. That's what makes the good wall. And so it's quality construction. Again, I talked about the longevity of it. And then those are some of the highlight satellite view benefits of hempcrete and why you would use it into a built space. And so there's a lot of folks that the primary motivator for some of the first homes built with hempcrete in the US was because the people building their home for their family had hypersensitivity to a lot of allergies and a lot of the toxins that are, off gas from the building supplies in the built environment. And then this gave families something that was safe, that didn't cause those reactions. And so we can go on to our next slide. And then now that's what it is, and then that's why, but now we'll talk about how. And so I use this mixer right here. This is a workshop we did. You can see us getting into it, but that is it pulls behind a half-ton pickup. It is not super expensive, big advanced equipment. This is something that any contractor could add to their fleet of equipment that they would use. It's a common construction piece of equipment. And then, you can use it for other things as well. And so it does mix hempcrete in the batches that I like for the method that I'm using. And there are several methods, and I'll go ahead and make mention of that. I chose this one because it is the simplest. I'm not a contractor, but I am the general contractor for my projects that I'm doing. And I want my skill level to be able to do this. And so this is very simplistic. And it also is something that I think can be duplicated to where if somebody is in another trade, whether it's insulation, framing, drywall, whatever, they can add this to their book of business and their skill sets and what they're doing very simply without having a lot of specialization. So you put the hurd, the lime, and the water, and then you can see there's a water meter there too, where you can meter that in very quickly. It'll take me about 1 to 5 minutes to do a whole batch. And you can crank those all day long. And it's got hydraulic lifts that turns things out. And so we can go on to our next slide. And then you can see this is what the supplies come like. These are the bags of hurd. It's like the school bell. These are the bags of hurd. Now, part of the story on this is it's 1 bag of hurd, 1 bag of lime, a couple gallons of water, easy peasy lemon squeezy. These bags of hurd came from France. So the French are about 30 years ahead of us. I know that torments our American souls. The French are about 30 years ahead of us doing this. And so they have everything dialed in, from the genetics to the processing to the offtakes, everything, to where they've got a nice market established. We are establishing those markets here domestically in the US, and then we are establishing those markets here in Texas. And so there are a number of processors that are making this right now. And so when I buy hurd, what I will do is use a third-party lab that does not have a dog in the hunt to test the physical characteristics and properties and the content and the particle size and the dustiness, and whether all the bast fiber is removed, because all of those things can affect how it turns out when I mix it with lime and water. If it's got anything that's off, then my mix is going to be off, the walls are going to fail, my phone's going to ring, the lawyers are going to come in, bad things happen. So if you're buying hurd from anybody, from the supplier, have it tested and validated. You can, there are some stickers on the side of the bag. They're real small, you can't see them, but that is the co-op that has that standard. And then we've got somebody from a lab right up here that can test those things. And then, they're like, hey, I'm not in the hurd business, I'm in the lab business. And then they don't have a dog in the hunt as far as how your project turns out. They're gonna let the machine tell them what it is, and then you'll get a report. And then that way, I have a cliche that I like to talk about, is that we all need to be able to sue each other and nothing bad happen. So if a project goes south, somebody doesn't like something, and then somebody sues somebody, we all need to be able to say we did the best we could. The engineer is going to go back to either ASTM standards or some laboratory standards, and I see some that nodding their head. Yeah, it's like if you're going to go into the storm holding the lightning rod and put your stamp on a sheet of paper, what makes you put your stamp on the sheet of paper is because there's a report over here that you can reference that if anything goes bad, because that engineer stamp, that's just the target for the attorney to fire at, right? And so when things go bad, sometimes it's worthwhile, or it's somebody did make a mistake. And so, but we want to go and do our level-headed best. And so when projects are coming on, this is a bit of a caution. It's a cautionary tale to move into it to where you have enough knowledge to make these informed decisions. I don't recommend the DIYers do it unless they know all of this stuff. So woe unto me if I discourage DIYers, but just the DIYers move cautiously. But this is how the bags come in. This is the stamp that's on it, and then this is the bag of binder. So I've talked about the certifications of the binder, make sure that it's tested. And then if you're going to get it from a CBD, sometimes there's reactivity that's different with CBD stalks that are different from reactivity from the fiber and the herd that you get from fiber varieties. And so those little bitty things, and then the lab will tell you that. As long as you know what questions to ask the lab, you know what answers to look for. And then there's really one at the end of the day. It's thumbs up, it'll work, or thumbs down, it won't. And then they'll give you the details on how to read into that. Notice that the words on here are also in French, because this is from France. I won't say that again fast, but this is where the binder comes from. They've dialed this in. This binder is very good for a mechanically blown in place wet mix of hempcrete. And so this binder has secret sauces called pozzolans that give it the physical characteristics and property to where it's flung at the wall by an air cannon, that it will stick, and then it will dry appropriately and harden in place. That's what we're using when we go downstairs and we get our hands in it in a little bit. I've mixed that binder with the French herd, and so you'll get to see what that looks, feels, and smells like. And so the point that I'm also making is that the French binder is now being developed to be here domestically available. There are several binders that are available domestically that can be bought and used for hand casting, where you mix it either mechanically with a mixer and then cast it in place by hand, which is what we'll be doing by hand in a little wall sample, to where by hand you take it and you convey it and you compact it, and then you're done. That's what the machine does. It conveys it by air, and then the speed at which it comes out of the cannon compacts it. So conveyance and compaction are the only two things that the process needs. And then, it's either formed up or on both sides or one side. But the binder for the air applied cannons is not available yet here unless you import it. Now that's going to be about the next, I'd say 1 to 3 years. There'll probably be some competition in that marketplace. I myself bought one of the spray machines. And then if I'm coming up to a project, I'm just weighing my price for labor versus the efficiency to use the machine for which binder I'm going to use at this point. I know the binders are coming. I know the secret sauce is being developed by the cooks in the kitchen, that's what they do. And I'm just waiting for them to put it out. So our next slide. This is what it looks like when you form it up. And so you see the boards that are above what was just formed, and that's right here. This is how you turn a corner. And if you want to put electric in there, we use that conduit. Some call it Smurf tube, but we ran some electric wires. This is a small project in San Antonio that we did for a hemp juicery, and it turned out real nice. And then, but those are the walls formed up. You can see how you would pour it from the top down, and then you tamp it in place, and we'll do that here in a minute. But over here on this side, you see the forms up at top. We just remove those. You can immediately remove the forms and go up to another lift. And so it holds in place. And when we pull the forms off downstairs, you'll see, hey, this is ready and being held in place. And so that's how you do it. That's applied by hand instead of mechanically applied. And that's the cast in place method, which is what it sounds like. And then that's how it's done. And then it'll need to cure for about 6 weeks or more. And you can run moisture meters on it before you put the plaster. You can put other exterior claddings on it. I am not going to, because again, my motivation is I want efficiency. I want to have a highly efficient, healthy environment for my tenants, but that efficiency is money in my pocket. And so when you put other different claddings, sometimes you lose that efficiency. And there's studies that I can direct you to where they've tested that in Europe, and then those results are there. But the best cladding or the best surface on the outside of it is plaster, a lime-based plaster that is vapor open, not a cement stucco. Very key difference. The key is vapor openness. You have to have a vapor open material in contact with this. So that means if you put the lime plaster on, you don't paint it with something that won't breathe. Breathe is not the correct word. Vapor open is what everybody in the industry would like to have there. But breathability is something that everybody can put in their vernacular and understand as well. Vapor can move in and out of the wall. And so all those little pockets will absorb vapor into them and then dissipate it back out. And you want to make sure that you don't create a condensating surface. That's the other big thing, that as you design things and you want to do make plans, you want to make sure that you don't create a condensating surface. And so those are the main things to keep in consideration. Now, if you'll notice, our logo has 5 stars. We'll move on to our next slide, and I'll tell you about the 5 stars, but that's what it looks like when it's all finished. You know, we cast in place. You can see the striations, the lines as they go up. And then, you know, this is the little building that we built. If you want to come take a tour of this in San Antonio, just let me know. I'd be happy to show you around. Buy me a taco and I'll give you a tour. And so, and if you come out and help with the plaster, I'll buy you a taco. And then, you know, we'll do the painting of the fence Tom Sawyer style. And so, but that's what it looks like. Keep on moving to the next slide. These are what some finishes. This house was just around the Conroe area. And this was built in 2008. Now back to motivation. This lady was a builder. She wanted a look. She wanted a beautiful old world look. And then somebody told her about hempcrete and using that, and this is what the plaster would do. And they nailed it. They made a neat little chapel for their daughter's wedding. And then this is a guest house on the property. But you can see some of the finishes on how you look. You know, that doesn't look weird. That looks nice. That looks lovely. It looks beautiful. And then what we're doing is not something that's bizarre. Now, you can build some really weird, bizarre stuff with hempcrete because you can cast it in whatever shape you want. That's one of the blessings and the curses of it too. Again, my objective is to make building with hempcrete very boring, and then I'll make it exciting. But these are some of the finishes that you can see. And so go on to our next slide, and then we'll keep on rocking and rolling. And then I'm watching out for our time so that we have enough time for downstairs. Yeah. So 4 or less of the 5 things that you need for your project, and your project will fail. And then the 5 things are: you need a builder, you need an architect, you need an engineer, and I'll go back through these with each individual slide. You need a subcontractor, and you need a supplier. And so we'll go on to our next slide and start talking about each of these. The point that I want to make on all of them is that you don't have to reinvent and retool something on a large degree to do this. If you're a builder, you need to know a few exterior wall profiles and a few flashing details, and you're a hempcrete builder. And so what I'm doing as the Hemp Building Network, I have zero desire to be the builder for everybody. That's a lot of human interactivity, and I don't have those skill sets. I have them for mine on my own projects on a small scale, but I don't have that type of skill set to be that builder in every single market. So what we want to do on a national platform is build a network of builders, architects, engineers, and subcontractors, and then be the suppliers to those professionals. And so if you are a builder, reach out to me. Hey, I'd like to learn more and be part of your network. That's what we're here to do, now, and those are the networks that we'll be recruiting. And so right now I'm fielding a lot of calls with people who want to build, and then I'm helping them interact with a builder that they already have, that they know and like, and then I'm bringing the builder up to speed about, well, what is involved? These are the only things. These are the hurdles you have to overcome. There are going to be a few things that are a pain in the neck, and when they are, I need a builder with a relationship with us that's not going to go, well, why don't you just put spray foam in here? I want somebody who's actually bought into the fact that we are doing something that's quality, that's healthy, and sustainable. And so that's the network that we need, is to hit on those three things: healthy, sustainable, and quality. But then you just go through the normal process like you would. And so move on to our next slide, and it'll be very similar for the next two. The architect, what it means to design as an architect. Really, we're changing the exterior envelope. Everything else is the same. There are a lot of methods to building with hempcrete, whether it's block, whether it's steel stud, wood stud, concrete in the middle. I'm doing baby steps. Wood frame, just like you would normally expect. And then this is insulation, nothing more, nothing less. It's not structural. When you hear structural hempcrete, what they're doing is they're pouring concrete down in the middle of it, and they're using the hempcrete block as a form. And then you've got a structural component to it. The hempcrete is not structural. That's one of the big takeaways that you'll have. Hempcrete is insulation, nothing more, nothing less. And then, but it's really cool and really good insulation. And so the architect needs to know that. They need to design the thickness of their exterior wall envelopes, the loads that will carry in their roofing system, if that's what they're using up in the roof, which I recommend doing as well. And then I even put it in the foundations, because we're using a pier and beam foundations. We're in highly expansive clay soils, and I like a pier that punches down to where you can remove the need for the headache from a slab on that. But the premise on all of these is just with just a few bits of knowledge, you can do that design. Now, I'm a real estate broker and investor. If you're an architect, who am I to tell you what to do on your trade? So I need architects that will be the good architect, that won't mess up the deal, that will encounter the pain in the neck aspects of building and then still overcome them with glee. But I also need architects that will teach and train other architects in our neighborhood and have those modules. So that's one of the things that I'm most excited about interacting with the Texas A&M community, is because ask any Aggie in the center of the universe for architectural and engineering science is College Station. And so the Aggies are good at that. And we're going to let you do the voodoo you do. And then what we want to do is have those training modules that go out on the building science, the training modules that go out on the engineering and architect, and we can blaze on through the engineering one because it's the same. Now, the key thing about the engineering, and goes back to the stamp. Imagine you and a couple of friends are going to walk through a rainstorm with a lot of lightning. Which one of you wants to hold the lightning rod? The engineer. That's what they do. They hold the lightning rod when you go through the storm, because that's what they get paid to do. They design things. They said, we should be able to go through that storm because of these scientific studies. And now I am gripping the rod on the lightning collector, and we're going to go through the storm, and it's going to be okay because all of this other science is behind us. That's what engineers do. That's what they do every day. And then they're very good at it, and they get paid for it. But when you take your plans that an architect has designed, after a builder has engaged with the clients and the customers about what their dream is, the architect draws it, the engineer stamps it, and now you go to permitting. And then if you go to a municipal government that needs to look at this and give a yes or a no, and it's something that they haven't seen before, and it's kind of like a cow looking at a new gate, then they're going to go, well, is this going to get me in trouble? What, and it's like, there's an engineer stamp on it. It's not going to get me in trouble. It's going to get the engineer in trouble. And so they're going to be likely to go on their way. Now, there are the process is in place to have building codes set up for hempcrete. They're not here yet. So until we have building codes, we have engineers. The engineers know what they're doing. The codes are for the people who don't know what they're doing, and they just need to design based on the code. And then all the engineers would be like, yeah, that's what we do. And so get an engineer, get them involved. They need to do a few simple things, because to be insulation, you need to do two things. You need to have a fire rating, and you need to have an R value rating, and we've got both for hempcrete. And then it's just a matter of getting it in the wall. So let's move on to the subcontractor and what it means to be a subcontractor working for the builder. You just need to be able to do the work. You need to be able to get it in the wall. You need to be able to do those things, make the flashing connections like what they need to be, a little bit of on-site job training, and you're good to go. What we're doing is we're setting up an apprentice program to where you can come, and instead of paying to come and learn on a sample, you can come and work on the job and then learn on a real project. That's the program that we're putting up. If you'll come work and learn, I'll monetize your labor on that job site instead of taking money out of your pocket to build a sample in a classroom. That's what we're doing for this community, to build the community, to build the Hemp Build Network. That's what we're doing. And so if you can play with Play-Doh, or if you can throw oatmeal cookie dough at your sister, you can be a subcontractor in this space. It's so easy, a real estate broker can do it. And so that's what we've done, and it's simple to tool up, and they just need to know a few basics within about a week to two. If you've got normal trade skills and normal knowledge that you would get on a construction job site, you can know how to modify that to install the hempcrete. So moving on to our last one, and the supplier, and this is where I've got the big star put on this slide for this conference specifically, is because the supplier is key. You can get this far. You can learn about hempcrete, you can want it, you can love it, you can have it designed, you can get it here. But now I got to import this from France, and I got this and all these problems, and you got like, let's not do that. I've had a number of people that have gone that far, and then supplier is key. And we've all heard supply chain in the news. Supply chain is a big deal. And so the conclusions and looking forward on this is there's a lot of progress in the US, specifically a lot of progress in Texas about the agricultural aspect, the processing aspect, the manufacturing side of things, and then the distribution. And so all of those logistical pieces are coming into place at a very rapid speed, because there's a lot of money on the table to be in that space as an operator. But the comment in the star is bad policy kills supply. I can't even get a bank account to put this stuff as insulation in a home because it's hemp. You know, there's something scandalous about that. So all of these other things that affect the industry affect here. Now, when the fiber side of the industry connects with our cannabinoid cousins, and we collectively go and then bring logic to the universe on all of this, one is going to help the other. And that's one of the things that we're looking for. And then it's one of the things that I think will benefit everyone, because as you learn about one thing, you'll learn about the other side of the plant. And as you learn about the other side of the plant, it'll all be this. And so we're all going to get interested and learn, and then it goes back to telling the story. I think that was my last slide. I was going to camp out for a little bit there and say thank you. And there's my contact information again. Again, text me if you want to be a part of the conversation that we have weekly on the Clubhouse platform. The replays are there as well, so you can go back and listen to those like a podcast. If you'd like to be a guest, or if you know anybody that wants to come on and you want to engage and have questions, I'll go reach out to the sphere of influence that I have and the network that I have, and see if I can bring people in. It's a small pond, but there's more people coming into it all the time. And then that's where we can share ideas. Does anybody have any questions about policy, product, or anything about it?
Yeah, so I have a background in building with non-traditional materials like Adobe, and we can see with a lot of our clients the difficulty it is in going to the bank and getting a loan to get the funding to do these things, and pay the brick makers, to pay the, get the equipment, and get someone to sign off.
Yeah.
Is it any easier
I'll tell you in about 3 to 6 months, because we're building, I did the project with Amos, and then that was built with cash. That's not a mortgage scenario. And then the first house that I'm building in San Antonio, that's already permitted, and it was permitted and they didn't ask questions because I had the engineer stamp on it. God bless engineers. And then so we're building it with cash, and then we intend to roll it to a permanent financing and then take that cash and build number 2. And so can you get a mortgage? I've talked to a number of mortgage professionals, and they're like, well, can you get a certificate of occupancy? If you can get a certificate of occupancy, you're good to go. And again, stamped by the engineer. Yeah, here and then there.
I think one important thing to point out for her, the process was approved for you because you did it more as an insulation versus structure.
Right.
So that's why he was able to.
Yeah. And that's a key distinction. And here it is, banks and insurance companies, and those are the 2 big questions. Can I insure it? Can I mortgage it? And then they are in the risk business. They purchase risk just like you're counting cards at Vegas. They purchase that risk knowing that statistically it's going to average out over here. And if you go to them and you say, hi, I think I might be a higher risk, let's talk, then you're not going to get very far in the conversation. If you say, hi, I have a certificate of occupancy with a house that was stamped by an engineer, and then you just like, here's my insurance policy, I need insurance on it. Then there'll be, if you go to them and say, hey, this is bizarre, look at me. Now, here's the thing that I think will happen. I think you are going to end up paying less for your insurance because it is a superior product. You know, insurance companies paid millions in mold. Right now, mold doesn't exist to the insurance companies compared to what it did when everybody was a mold remediation contractor. And so they said, nah, that doesn't exist anymore unless it's like a flood or something like that. And so they took a lot of those claims that they were paying and they changed the criteria. The roofing industry is about to see the same thing. And so I think because of its fire rating, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, hempcrete rates about a 0 as far as its flammability. And so I think you'll be able to get insurance discounts in addition to just getting the policy. And then as far as the mortgage, I think you'll be able to have the same effect because they're in the risk business, and then this is a lower risk, but money likes data. That's one of the other things that I'm super excited about Texas A&M is because engineers and everybody like to collect data and then they make their decisions based on data. Money likes data. If I can talk to money and then I can have a spreadsheet with numbers on it, not paragraphs and descriptive anecdotes, but if I can have a spreadsheet with numbers, money is a number, the spreadsheet is a number, numbers like to talk to numbers, architects like to talk to architects, engineers like to talk to engineers, doctors like to talk to doctors, lawyers like to talk to lawyers. And so you let the numbers communicate. And then data, when I hold these long-term as rental properties, we're going to have sensors in the house. If you're going to rent from me, you're going to be living in a science experiment. And I'm hoping that the tenants are excited about it because we're going to measure things like air quality. We're going to measure things like relative humidity, how much, you know, if we go deep down into it on all the electromagnetic fields and the, you know, the air quality and stuff like that. But first and foremost, the efficiency that translates into dollars. If you can translate something into a dollar, I can motivate a lot of people if I hold a dollar bill out in front of you to do something. You know, there's a lot of hula hoops that the world will jump through to get to that. And so let's make that be the motivation, and everything else is gravy on the steak. It's not the steak in and of itself. So we are at 12. What we're going to do from here, are there any other questions? Yeah.
But normally they travel, they thought this was a cannabis only show, so they did not come.
So Herring in Westtown?
Yeah, Herring
Herring and Westtown for the banks, and then just let them know that you heard about it from the cannabis policy presentation. And Andrew Escamilla with those. Okay. No, you can get it domestically. There's a handful that are coming online, and then they are farmers that have taken it all the way through, and they're also processing. So very similar to the CBD market, where to take it all the way through to market, you had to process as well. There's South Bend Industrial Hemp that's in Kansas that's doing that. And then there's a handful of processors here in Texas that are processing a variety of CBD biomass into that. That's where you get with somebody like this gentleman right here, get him a sample, and he'll send you a lovely report that I'll never read, but I'm going to get JJ to go do this or this, just like Julius Caesar, you know. And then if it's this, I know there's a data-driven report that, you know, my engineer might look at, and then that'll happen. Yeah. Right now, it's more. This is very new adoption technology. If you do your whole budget for your house, let's just say you're not getting carried away. You're going to be about 10 to 20% in that range, which is exactly where you'd be if you were doing closed cell spray foam instead of fiberglass bats. You know, if you wanted a real high performing, or if you wanted an exoskeleton type of insulation and stuff like that, if you're going to go down the being a super efficient home, you're going to spend a little bit of extra money. This is a super efficient home. My gut is this will be a super efficient home. It'll be more expensive now as we do this and we have a pathway to production. This will be more affordable than the normal systems that we're using today. And then that's when, as the market wants it, the providers will provide it, and then everything comes together, because we don't get the economic and ecological benefit out of all the carbon sequestration, out of all the healthy environment for the living and built space that we create, unless we do this at scale on production. And that's where we need to take the production builders. If this was a Disney movie, they would be the villain in the movie. And then now we need to take Darth Vader and bring him back to be an Anakin Skywalker. And then we can do that if we take something to them. And then if the market demands it, developers and builders really don't care what it is. You know, if the market's demanding it and they can supply it and make money doing it, well, that's a simple equation. We just need to be educated and want the right things. And then the market needs to give them the tools to bring it to the marketplace. We should be complete within the next 3 to 6 months in San Antonio. And then, so, you know, we'll be on social media a lot as we're doing things. And then we've been kind of quiet while we're permitting. We put out a bit for Amos's deal, but look for us to really start telling the story and talking a lot. And that's where we're going to folks like you, you know, to, you know, all the things like and share, do that, and that spreads like wildfire.